Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to Battle Chads. I'm here with Josh.
Hello, everybody.
And our nice and new guest, Chris Nicholls. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate.
You guys just got out of a very interesting and very somewhat stressful but fun and intense weekend at the Axion Now Mega Modern.
Yep.
How are you guys feeling?
Well, I probably feel not as good as how Chris feels.
Yeah.
Chris actually top 8'd, am I right, Chris?
Yeah, top 8'd, yeah.
And you top 8'd with Boros Energy?
Yeah, Boros Energy. It's a pretty good deck. Pretty good deck.
Yeah, some say it's a good deck. I've seen it a little tiny bit when I've been testing online. And I of course played Frog because of my continuous amphibious fetish. I just can't get enough of that card. So yeah, I played Frog. I went to a above average 5-3. I was happy with some of the plays I made, but I was extremely disappointed with two of the misplays I made, which cost me 2 games, unfortunately. But it was a great weekend. I had tons of fun. I don't actually get a chance to play much high stakes Magic in paper at the moment due to where I live, because I live in basically the Dagobah system. So yeah, it was really nice to get away to Sheffield and play.
It doesn't stop him from trying to convince me to move up there every other weekend.
Oh no! You could come and live with me, Luis. You could live in my attic with me. You could be my attic goblin.
Oh God!
So Chris, what we'll do now is, even though like we asked you on in the wake of this tournament, for those who don't know, Axion Now is the sort of the premier competitive tournament of the UK, the tournament organizer of the UK, and they run RC qualifiers, but not only that, they run their own sort of pathway to the Pro Tour. So if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that they have a structure where you can build your points on a leaderboard, which will get you invited into the end of year sort of Pro Tour Invitational. But also, if you top 8 any of the mega events, you will also automatically get an invite into that Pro Tour Invitational, which Chris, you landed that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's in November, I think it is, as well.
Yep.
So that's not too far away, to be honest. So I should probably start testing for that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
I remember, it looks like it's going to be a sweaty event.
Yeah. I remember from a friend I had that qualified last year that it was a very intense. They had almost like a mini Pro Tour style event. They had a limited section as well, like a drafting. So you have to be really prepared for the event.
So I don't know what format it'll be. I imagine it'll be Foundations when that comes out, because that'll probably be the latest set. I love Limited. I can grind Limited all day.
Cool.
So hopefully that'll be good testing for that. But obviously that's only like half the journey in it. The rest is grinding my head against the modern grindstone.
Exactly.
You know what though? During the pre-brief we did say that we were going to give a shout out to Axion, but I think it's more appropriate we do it now. But honestly, shout out to Axion for bringing this sort of level of opportunity to the UK, because you look at things like Italy, there's stacks of opportunity to do qualifiers. You know, you've got the European Legacy Masters, you've got all the RCs in on the continent. It's really accessible to people like that. You look at America, there's so much available there, but you look at the UK and there tends to not really be as much higher level stakes Magic, and Axion have really found that niche. They found that drive, that want, especially with GPs not being a thing anymore, and delivering that to the player base in the UK. So I just want to give them, and I'm sure you lads would agree, a massive shout out for
absolutely.
Some huge props.
I really like that they had like competitive, like limited as well, like the 3 rounds of limited that they had going on. Seemed like really good, like fun, but also like great practice and a good environment to like get playing as well.
I believe that event actually sold out because I was originally going to bring Ellie up to play, and she won't really want to do sealed because it wasn't like a traditional Axion Now event where you had loads of side events going on because of the space they had, because they were supporting local LGSs. This one was in Sheffield, and there wasn't enough space to run any more side events. So Ellie was really disappointed to find out that it got sold out really quick, and I believe it sold out in less than 24 hours, that event. Which says something about the thirst for sort of competitive Magic, limited Magic, and constructed Magic within the UK.
Exactly, especially because even the Mega Modern this time around got sold out. You know, we had a few people, we won't name any names, but we'll just say he's an old grandfatherly figure in Liverpool who really wanted to go, but forgot to purchase his ticket. And
I'll name him Stephanos. Stephanos, get your act together. I love you, man, but get your act together.
The best part was he was literally telling everybody, don't forget the early bird stops tonight at this time. Make sure you get your tickets. And then he still doesn't have his. It's just, I don't know what's wrong with him. Honestly, this guy, man. But next time.
So what I think we should do now before we go into a tournament breakdown, because I'll talk about my tournament because mine's probably mine is less impressive than Chris's tournament. But we'll still go into tournament breakdown with each other. But first, how about we chat about the post-ban modern meta? Because we were talking about this intensely. And Chris, I don't know what your process in testing was, but how have you found the meta post-ban?
So I didn't actually play too much modern pre-ban. I was pretty much just like watching a lot of content for it. The only modern testing that I realistically did was FNMs and with some people that play at my LGS. None of us played Nadu anyway because we all just assumed it was going to get banned. So it's like we've been testing like for a post Nadu format regardless. But obviously with that, there's going to be a lot of changes to like the Jeskai control decks, which have to be tuned for like Nadu and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But just knowing that there isn't this like monstrous bird combo deck just gonna like rampage the format feels like pretty good. It opened up a lot of sideboard slots. So looking at Boros lists specifically pre Nadu ban, they all had 4 sideboard slots just eaten up by Harsh Mentors. And throughout the format, you saw a lot of Disruptor Flutes as well, and maybe like some more Pithing Needle type effects as well, just like within sideboards, because the only way that you can realistically beat Nadu is to hurt the activated abilities. And seeing those sideboard slots go and then just like reshape around the meta was quite interesting to see. The grief ban didn't really change anything.
No,
which is why I don't think it should have happened, but it is what it is.
It changed one thing, I think. It made Goryo's better.
Yeah, it has made Goryo's better. And that's really funny. That is really, really funny.
Somehow, right? Because Goryo's used to rely a lot on this ephemerate kind of combo with grief and a little bit of solitude. But it turns out that it was awkward because it kept making you go very dead in the hand. While a deck can refuel a little bit, it wasn't great. It felt meh. But now that they have Thoughtseize instead, you know, on turn 3, they Thoughtseize you, they take your 1 interaction piece to stop the combo, and then combo you, and you die. It's great.
The thing about the Goros deck as well, you know, there's definitely people out there that are like hardcore Goros players that have been off of Grief for so long, shouting to the clouds, just trying to say, we need to stop playing Grief, it's really bad. And then all of a sudden, now the Grief's banned and people are on Thoughtseize, they're just like, I told you so.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we predicted as well that like a deck like Living End would be dead, and Living End is quite alive. I mean, it's doing some mad mid-rangey stuff, but it's still got the combo there, and you know, there's I probably wouldn't bring it into like a frog heavy meta, to be fair, but it's still quite alive, and it just shows you that I think the targeted ban of Grief was more aimed at the fact of enabling more fun. I think it was more of a fun ban, which is why I don't know why they didn't ban the One Ring, but whatever.
Yeah, I have no idea why they didn't ban the Ring.
It's true what they say, right? What is dead cannot be killed. So it's really cool with that, with all that. And yeah, I don't know. The Grief ban, to me, it leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. It is still one of those things that feels awkward. It's one of those things that, you know, we talked about in the other podcast that they said, oh, there's no One Ring deck that really is showing up. Yeah, because it's across multiple decks.
There's just 7 of them.
The premier aggro deck has the One Ring in it. Yeah, that's okay. And then Grief was like
One Ring deck.
Grief was in what? It was in 2 decks, and they were both mediocre at the time. You know, it was Goryo's and Neko Dominance, which was getting absolutely blasted by everyone. It just wasn't doing anything, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not saying that I want it unbanned, but I don't know. It felt bad. What I do want unbanned is Fury.
Fury unbanned.
Yeah.
And we were talking about a recent list posted. There was was it the Axion event or which event that had 11 or out of the 15 decks that were Gigantha decks or something.
So
The modern challenge.
I'm gonna. I don't want to say his name because I'm gonna absolutely butcher it to death. But there was a tweet out today that showed the Axion breakdown of the X2s or better, and Luis was quite right. So many. In fact, let's see if I can actually find it right here, because I just sent it to Chris. Bear with me. So I'm actually going to count them out here. So it was Alexander Gordon Brown. There we go. There's his name. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
I don't think I've ever heard Josh count
17.
this high.
I had to get my toes out, mate. 17 out of the 21 decks were all sort of a Gigantha style deck. Well, the Gigantha is the companion. 17 out of 21, mate.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was for the super qualifier, not the Axion event, because the Axion event had a bunch of Eldrazi that were definitely not playing Gigantha in the top 8. Yeah,
super qualifier. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Fury was a problem.
I mean, they banned Fury when they should have banned Grief at the time for the Rakdos deck, because they banned Beans at the same time to hit the Omnath piles. And then they were like, guys, we've done it. We've fixed Modern. People were still getting griefed on turn 1 and felt awful. Fury getting banged changed almost nothing except giving like 3% extra play rate to Yawgmoth. And then now we've got Boros and Mardu Energy running super low to the ground, 1 million X1s, 1 million X2s, that Fury would just love to eat up in like a mid-range, like a more top-end mid-range to like control deck style red deck that would just mop the floor with them at a really good spot in the meta, and it just can't exist because Fury isn't there, and it really needs like the power of a card like Fury, because there isn't really anything like that right now. I mean, we've seen how poorly the Omnath decks have been doing since MH3.
Yeah, I do like that sort of looking at like enabling a answer rather than banning a problem could be quite a good way of looking at approaching the meta. And I don't know if Boros Energy is a problem right now. I do know to my soul, to my core, that One Ring is a problem. Like that card is a problem. So if that card went out of Modern, I fear that the decks that are keeping things like Boros, Mardu, the Jeskai sort of control decks, will they be good enough to sort of keep up with the rest of the meta? I don't know. Because the problem with the Boros, the problem that we have when we approach Boros is the fact that Boros can dump the hand, and then unlike a traditional aggro deck where once their hand is dumped, they're then drawn on top of the deck, they've got a backup plan of Flage, which then gives them a mid-range strategy, but then you've got One Ring, which as a Murktide player, what the One Ring does is it negates every the 4 or 5 turns you did beforehand trying to stabilize the board. Absolutely pointless, because the whole process of getting above them as a tempo player becomes absolutely negated as soon as they resolve a One Ring, because you don't have the answer for it, because you've been using your counter spells and your removal spells for the other problems that have been running.
There's nothing worse than going turn 3, turn 4, tapping out for a big wrath effect, a Toxic Deluge or Meathook Massacre or something. You've stabilized, you've gained some ground, you feel okay, and then the One Ring comes out because you can't counter it there because you've tapped out. And you can't really use Force of Negation too well in that matchup as well, because it's mostly creatures. So you get absolutely done in by a single card. And because they have this one card, they outdraw your entire deck easily. And then find more copies of it, find more aggression, Blood Moon you from nowhere. It feels abysmal. It is not a fun play pattern. And it's a play pattern that it just feels dumb, like, why should the premier aggro deck that is punishing you for being clunky get this tool and punish you for playing the way you should against a deck like this, if that makes sense? It's really awkward. So we have to find something, because it's not like when you cast Toxic Deluge, it costs you a lot of life to do as well. So you're putting yourself low. The One Ring will draw them a few lightning bolts, maybe a few haste creatures. Then you're just dead. Game's over.
It's one of those weird things, and I don't know if Chris would agree with me on this one. But like, if that did go, then like, would the meta, like how up in the air would the meta be?
Because you think
like, yeah.
So, if the ring goes, Boros, whilst it, because Boros is abusing the ring right now. Like I just back up what we said. Where from the other side, like when you're playing against Frog's the deck that I played against the most. When they say they throw Force and Negation out against the Blood Moon, and then they're like, okay, I can like shields down for another moment, the Blood Moon's gone, and then you just slam a ring, you just feel like you've won immediately. Like as soon as I resolve a ring, I'm like, oh, I win this game. Like the win rate that I have, if I'm not already like facing down like an 8/8 that I can't kill, my win rate just probably skyrockets to like 90% for that matchup. It feels completely unclawbackable like for the Murktide matchup. If the ring goes, how do I think the modern meta is going to look? The Boros deck will lose. Like, I mean, one of the reasons why they're running it is for the mirror, and especially against the Mardu variant as well, because the Mardu variant eats them alive if they're not on Orcish Bowmasters and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the Murktide matchup obviously gets way better for the Murktide deck against Boros. The decks that lose it are like Jeskai, Amulet Titan.
Jeskai and Amulet Blues, yeah.
Yeah, Through the Breach, the Eldrazi ramp decks and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird because the Jeskai deck could probably move to running different forms of card advantage. I'm unsure what, but like maybe more copies of like
Omnath or something.
Yeah, maybe you might see Omnath come back, but also you could see like a few more increased like copies of like Teferi just to like help like stabilize pressure. Maybe some main decked temporary lockdowns, which are insane against Boros and Mardu Energy.
Yeah.
The Through the Breach deck has like it uses the One Ring kind of like a like just as a fog, really, just so then they can buy the extra turn and then annihilate you for 15.
Well, I noticed One Ring in that deck. One Ring in that deck particularly is like, yeah, they draw loads of cards, but because their cards cost like 7-8 plus mana, they're not going to be spamming all. Like you could, as a Boros Energy deck, you could draw 4 cards and you could potentially play all those 4 cards on that turn. Whereas the Eldrazi ramp decks, they're like, right, I've drawn these cards, but I've got to pick one or two.
Don't get me started on this. All right, listen.
Before I'm dumping anything.
Oh my god!
I would say though. Sorry, Lewis. Let me just make this point.
Go.
Otherwise, my brain will explode. I would say though that the Jeskai control decks and such, Wrath of the Skies is a hell of a card. And I do think decks supporting that sort of package will still do really well. There was a spicy deck that Archdota, whatever you pronounce it, brought to Axion, which sort of had its own little different engine. We'll talk about that in a bit, which is quite interesting. But yeah, Luis, what were you going to say before you have a hemorrhage?
For me, it was just these Eldrazi decks. So the Breach decks, they're a little clunkier with that kind of thing. The other day, I literally played against the most insane Emrakul, the Promised End tribal deck that I've ever seen. I don't know what was happening. Literally, every turn, there was an Emrakul, the Promised End, coming at my face. They were casting it, and it was just fueled that and the ring. And that was the only cards I saw. It was just Emrakul, the Promised End. I don't know what was going on. It was horrendous. It was the most abysmal time of my life. And they just kept doing it because of the One Ring.
It sounds like you need more consigned to memories in your hand.
They played Cavern of Souls. I was screwed. There was nothing I could do. It was I don't know. There's some weird decks going on with the One Ring and these uncomfortable measures that they're taking. But it's one of those things with the One Ring, right? A lot of people fear that if you ban the One Ring, the control decks will all just die. Because before the One Ring, there is a decent amount of control that didn't exist. It was struggling. It was having a hard time. Now, I don't know if that would still be the case if the One Ring was gone. However, it is definitely something to take into consideration when having a discussion about banning the One Ring. I'm still in the camp of I want to get rid of it, and I think they'll be fine. I think the control decks can find other ways to play the game instead of just relying on this one piece of uninteractable kind of mesh.
Well, their card advantage then isn't relied on the opponent. Like their card advantage isn't being matched by the opponent, and they haven't got to keep up with the opponent's One Ring if One Ring doesn't exist in the format, so they can bring in lots of interaction. Flage is still a card advantage engine, in my opinion. You know what I mean? You get a spell and then you bring it back, and you can continuously bring it back. You could go more into like a sort of like beatdown plan with subtleties, play more solitudes, play more answers into forms of creatures, to fairies, etc.
The thing with it, right? Traditional control, the whole point of it was to 2-for-1. It was have some 1-for-1s and then 2-for-1. Instead of right now, it feels a lot of the One Ring. It doesn't matter if I 2-for-1 myself, as long as I'm removing stuff, because the One Ring will draw me all my stuff back. And I don't think that's a very healthy or interesting game pattern. So I want to see them just get tools. Maybe they can print a little more things in Dustborn, or the following sets that gives them better 2-for-1 angles once the One Ring is gone. Because that's what I would love to see. I would love to see that play pattern. Almost the Jund-esque control kind of style of things, instead of just this. Let me dump everything I have because this one card will draw me everything, and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's actually how it feels when you're playing Boros and you land it. You can just freely play into wrath effects. Like normally, like you might have to think, oh, there might be a wrath coming, so I should maybe keep a card or two back just to like you have something to deploy the next turn. As soon as you get the ring down, you just don't care. You just fire on all cylinders. That's why it feels so like oppressive when they've got a One Ring down, because there's just no end to the threats. Especially when they're trying to like dig for like bolts and flages to aim at your face as well. As soon as that goes, Boros probably might move back to unstable amulets, but they're like really weak to Wrath of the Skies. But that obviously helps them get extra reach because it does extra ping damage.
Fable as well.
Yeah, Fable the Mirror Breaker. That's a really solid one as well. But which helps end up fueling Flage as well. Helps like remove the dead draws, but also like, because of the way that Fable works, you usually discard a lot of lands, so you're not going up on mana, so you can't develop all your threats all at once. Whereas the Ring, because you end up drawing all your lands, there's a lot of times where you end up just hitting 7 mana, so you can just go Flage, Escape Flage, hasted it, all in one turn, and just 15 your opponent, because, well, there's no real punish for like having too many lands, because you're just constantly drawing spells to play.
That's disgusting.
I've done that so many times with the Ring. Just go up to 7 mana, and I'm like, oh yeah, did you not know I'm actually a late game mid-range control deck now? Take 15, and just annihilate someone's board, and just be like, yeah, that felt really fair.
So we made a point when we tried to do like when we did our podcast, we tried to do like what we expect to see. Like I thought Yawgmoth would have been a big winner, and Yawgmoth was seen this weekend at Axion, and it has been seen online. I do think it's a really well positioned deck. I don't think there's enough people playing it to justify how good it is. It's really good against these creature decks. It's really good. Grist is a hell of a drug. Put that underneath an Aegis Soul Cauldron, and like as a tempo player, can't beat that. But we also had this conversation where what we would see online and what we see in paper might be two different things. Particularly in the Nadu meta, what you would see in paper is Nadu because it's a lot easier to explain the loops, etc.
Yes.
And then I suggested that, or we both suggested, sorry, that what you would see online at the time during the modern Nadu meta would be what it would be like in paper post-ban, because people were essentially playing a post-ban meta. Obviously, we didn't foresee Grief being banned. That being said, Chris, what were you expecting coming up to this tournament? And then you tell us what you thought, and then we'll tell us what we were thinking as well, and see if it matches up.
I was expecting a lot of Boros and Mardu. I was expecting to play the mirror a lot. I didn't play the mirror once, which was interesting. Yeah. I dodged Boros and Mardu every single round. No idea how I did it, but
That's
I just did. I was expecting a lot. I was expecting a decent amount of Jeskai, but not as much as the two decks. I was expecting a lot of Frog. I keep seeing Frog in every single event that I go to. Like, quite a lot of people playing it. I was expecting a decent amount of a mixture of the Eldrazi decks. It feels like there's a bunch of the Eldrazi decks going around, but they're all just like slight variations on each other. Like some playing through the breach, some are just straight ramp, some are running Tron, some Tron decks are just straight Tron with no Eldrazi. And the thing that I was expecting to see more of was Storm. I was expecting to see a big uptick in Storm. Storm feels like, in a post-grief world, that it's a lot better suited. Which is why, compared to the RCQ that I played the week before, I upped onto 2 Dranith Magistrates. I changed my sideboard around a little bit just so I could hedge into Storm a bit better. Sadly,
Yeah,
didn't
so
play against Storm at all. But like, I think it's still probably correct for me to be more prepared for it, because at the RCQ that I went to the previous week, which I ended up winning in the quarterfinals, I played against Storm and I only had 2 or 3 damping. I think I had 3 damping spheres in the board and a Soul Guide Lantern, and I felt really, really unprepared to play against Storm, because that matchup is generally quite bad. If you don't find a sideboard piece, you can be as aggressive as you possibly can, and Storm can sometimes just like kill you on turn 2 or 3.
yeah,
Quite notably as well, if you are on the play and then they start with Gemstone Caverns, you feel, oh well, I'm dead, because you might not be able to get enough time to like find your pieces or whatever. So I just thought having extra copies of Dragon Magistrate in the board would give me more outs to a Storm matchup. I
That
did
makes a lot of
think
sense.
about playing Deafening Silence over Damping Spheres for the Storm matchup, because a lot of the Storm players are running a Braid, and a Braid deals with both Dranith Magistrate and Damping Sphere, whereas they don't really have anything other than maybe if they wish for something against a Damping Sphere. No, not Damping Sphere. Deafening Silence. Like, they might have to get a Foundation Breaker or something if they've thought that far ahead in the board. But
a lot of
I
the
ended up thinking about Damping Sphere instead because it hits the Eldrazi decks as well.
one of the most successful lists, and you were right to that, because Storm was a relatively big showing in that tournament.
Yeah.
Even I think 2 Storm decks made the top 8.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I ended up
Yeah.
not playing against any of them once again, but I still think it was absolutely correct to play against them. To board against them. I have to be more prepared.
100%. And I mean, I faced against Storm round 1, and I feel like my matchup with Storm is just basically potentially unlosable, unless I draw absolutely bad. The deck that was brought by Team Axion was like a blue red version of Storm to play Flame Venor, and also Baral, Chief of whatever it's called.
Compliance.
Yeah.
Compliance, yeah. Compliance, and that deck was really good because that could answer main board all the traditional hate pieces for Tron. It could answer the artifacts, the Dampening Spheres, the Dranith Magistrates, the Mage Flame Lizards, Trinispheres, all that good stuff. Like, it could just answer it with Flame Venor. But the thing I liked about, if you were to bring in a Deafening Silence, is that deck, bar any sort of bounce effects, I'm not sure if they play.
They play Sink into Super.
Into the Floodmaw.
And into the Floodmaw as well, yeah, from Bloomburrow. But the thing about Sink into Super is that it's like 3 mana, they've got to tap out for that. Like, if I'm playing an aggressive deck, like Boros, them tapping out 3 mana to bounce my 1 mana Deafening Silence, and then somehow trying to combo off, they're probably dead.
Yeah. They bounce that, even if it's in potentially your turn on 3 mana. Like, you could just play at that point. You could be on a second one when it comes to turn 3. Do you know what I mean? Like, you bounce a second one, then it's like, what are you gonna do? But yeah, it seems like a really good tech. I actually like that, to be fair. But yeah, so that's what you're prepared for. I would suggest that me and Luis and the guys at Chad Magic were very similar. We expected Frog, we expected Boros, obviously, we expected the Mirror quite heavily, and a couple of me and George both faced the Mirror, and obviously the variations of Tron. I was expecting more towards Through the Breach, but I from what I could see around the room, it was more towards the green. What I could tell more towards the green, but I do believe the Breach decks did do better.
I also expected Through the Breach more.
Yeah.
And I going into the event, I actually didn't know that the Eldrazi ramp decks were a thing. I thought it was either just Eldrazi Tron or Eldrazi or Through the Breach combo. So I actually ended up bringing in the Containment Priests, because when you're playing against the deck, it plays almost the exact same cards as Through the Breach.
Yeah.
They're even playing like the same like red like talismans that tap for red and green.
Yeah.
And the only one thing difference that I think is the big, like, this is not Through the Breach, is that they're playing Utopia Sprawls.
Yes.
Yeah, and so, like, but I didn't know that it was a deck, so I saw the Utopia Sprawl and went, oh, this guy's just on like a different list or whatever. So I still brought in the Containment Priests. And this was for 2 matches as well. And then that's where, like, when I left the time, I was like, okay, this deck has a lot more eyes on it than I would think so. Now there's like 4 different like big Eldrazi or big mana decks that you've got to watch out for that all have like either the same or different like sideboard plans for.
It's guess the flavor. And
yeah,
the
pretty
flavor,
much. Yeah.
Turns out build your own soul land is still pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's busted. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's exactly right. When we discussed it all, we expected Frog and Boros energy to be the most common ones. Mardu, we were expecting a little bit, but not too much, just because of how people were playing at the local RCQs and all that. But Frog and Boros were definitely the top 2 we were expecting. Followed that, we thought it was going to be, like you said, red-green Eldrazi, which is usually Breach. Didn't consider Teamer.
No.
Didn't really expect it. Not to this level, at least. And then we said Storm, I think, was the 4th highest we expected to see, which was more or less true. There was quite a bit of Storm. Not a lot of them did very well. I think Alex was like definitely the best performing by far. And it was a really interesting shakeout of the meta. We did expect a little bit more from Yawgmoth in them. I think there was 3 decks in the top, I want to say 25 that were.
I think there's 1 in the top 25 at Axion from looking over this list now.
For the Yawgmoth decks? I think there was only 3.
I'm looking at it now, and I could only see 1 Yawgmoth from the top 25.
Sorry, 1 in the top 25, and the other was in the top.
Oh, I see.
Top half. I can't remember the exact breakdown. There was only 3 that did relatively well. They were 5-3-ish or better.
Yeah.
I think it was Dylan Dylan was the best performing one at 5-2-1. So this is a deck that, like Josh was saying, that we are expecting to see a lot more of. It is a hard deck to play, though, just like Amulet Titan, that we're also expecting to see more. So these decks always have that problem with them, that because they're so difficult, they don't have the best representation in the world. Even though they're really good decks, they are definitely kept behind by how well people actually play them. It's not as easy to play something like this as it is to play Boros Energy, very low to the ground, spam your hand,
very
kind of go.
There was something I should mention about Yawgmoth. I recently joined the a local not local but a Yawgmoth Discord where there's probably 2,000 people that play Yawgmoth all in this place, just to see what was going on with the deck, because one of my friends plays it.
Right.
And the Yawgmoth community appear to be split between 2 different builds. As well.
Yes.
So they're not even unified. Some of them are running Malevolent Rumble and Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Yes.
And the others are running Chthonian Nightmare and Birthing Ritual.
Yeah.
And they have even though it doesn't feel like there would be that much difference, they have completely different matchup spreads and sideboards and everything like that. So it because they're not unified, it's kind of difficult as well.
As a York player, if I see Birthing Ritual over Agatha's Soul Cauldron, I'm happy. Agatha's Soul Cauldron with a grist underneath it is unbeatable.
It's busted.
I can't beat that. I can't beat it. I just can't.
Yeah.
And that's what Dylan played. Dylan played Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
From a non-Yawgmoth player, Agatha's Soul Cauldron route is the correct route in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm not a Yawgmoth player, so take that with a pinch of salt.
I got crushed online against Control for days. The very well-known Yawgmoth player. So
there's 2 decks I want to talk about that really outperformed and were quite good. The first one I want to talk about is Arch. I keep saying his name wrong.
It's Arch, yeah.
Archdota's list with the dress down Null Drifter deck.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant call for the meta. Dress down answers through the breach, answers Yawgmoth answers on a tempo swing, that is, answers all this nonsense that's going on in Modern just naturally while developing its own game plan. Really smart deck of thought. You can see that on the Axions list. If we get a chance, we'll put it on the show notes, I'm sure. And another one, and I'm going to shout out because I actually got really excited with this, but I'm going to shout out Christian Mustafa on his Rakdos Goblin Lore deck, however you want to call
Burning
it.
Inquiry, yeah.
Burning Inquiry deck. The Rakdos absolutely. There's a guy Reese locally for us as well. He picked up that deck when I saw it. When he saw it and he shared that, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. It looked like the first Modern deck that I was trying to build back in the day when Goblin Lores were like £12 each, £15 each. Absolutely. He absolutely smashed the deck. He didn't make the top 8 of the main event, but he was very close. But he did win the Chocolate Top 8 afterwards with it. So the side event, and he got an invite. He got an RC invite, I believe, from that. So he actually smashed it with that deck, and that deck was a real sleeper that not many people were on. I think there might have been 2 in the room at that time. I don't know, but he smashed with that deck. And yeah, the Null Drifter deck, really spicy, really cool decks to bring. Particularly in this meta, there was some cool sideboard text. For example, there was a card in Mustafa's in Christian's Christian Mustafa. Hopefully, I hope I'm saying that right.
Reign of Gore.
Reign of Gore.
Reign of Gore. All right, hang on, look at this.
Reign of Gore. I cast Flage. Sure.
Whoa!
You lose 3 damage. You take 3.
And one big thing that I'm going to let people know right now, because everyone seems to miss this. If your creature has lifelink, you can still attack. You don't get hit by lifelink.
Yeah.
This came up apparently a handful of times from people watching. Some of our Totem teammates were saying that people were not attacking with their giant lifelinker because they kept reading this and thought that they wouldn't gain the health and would take damage instead. And that was huge. Sorry, Christian. I know that might be giving away your strategy a little bit there. But please, people, lifelink doesn't count for what Reign of Gore does.
Can I mention our deck that I saw at the event that was super interesting?
Yeah, go for it.
So there's actually 2 players that were on this deck, and they made 11th and 13th, I believe, in the going into like the top 8, and it was this like Naya mid-range deck. That was like a combo deck as well, based around Safi Eric's daughter. Yeah, Safi Eric's daughter, Extraction Specialist. But like, where's the card that one of them was running? I think one of them was running. Yeah, they were both running a card called Sting Scourger, which is a 2-mana goblin that bounces a creature. I watched that resolve and just bounce a 6/6 Murktide, and his opponent was just like, what? What do you mean bounce in red? It was a really cool, like, interesting deck, because you've got the same thing as just like energy, where you've got like Ajani's, Amped Raptors, Guide of Souls for like your early aggressive plan, and then you've got it backed up by just a combo finish with Goblin Bombardment and Safi with Extraction Specialists. So you're like, you make them spend all these resources to deal with all these early threats, and then just go, all right, I win. So, which reminds me, like, it's not exactly Twin, but that's what Twin used to do, where it would like mid-range you out and then just go,
Twinless Twin.
Yeah, Twin. Yeah. Just thinking you out. And I think it's really cool that like both of them made like really close to top 8. Like they both 6-2'd at the event. I 6-2'd and got into top 8. But my breakers were just better. Like I was the only 6-2 that ended up top 8 in, because I lost to Archdota in the 8th round.
Did you witness the loop between Goblin Bombardment, Safi, and Renegade Rallier?
No, but I mean that's the exact same as the.
What is this card? This Safi? Because to me and combo decks is like, it's like trying to explain a combo deck to me is like trying to explain how to send an email to your mom. It's like my brain and combo just doesn't function.
Sure. So it's a card called Safi Eric Daughter. It's a green and white, so 2-mana creature for a 2/2. And it has the ability, sacrifice Safi. When target creature is put into your graveyard this turn, return that card to the battlefield. So what you do with it is you have Goblin Bombardment on the field, Safi is on the field, and then you play a Renegade Rallier in some way, shape, or form. You would sacrifice Safi, targeting the Renegade Rallier.
Yeah.
You would then sacrifice the Renegade Rallier with Goblin Bombardment. Renegade Rallier would come back because of Safi's trigger, which would then bring it back to Safi. You would then sacrifice Safi one more time onto Renegade Rallier, sack the Renegade Rallier once again to Goblin Bombardment, and obviously each ping is going at your opponent's face, and they die.
Yeah. It's the exact same with Extraction Specialists as well. Renegade Rallier and Extraction Specialists do the exact same thing, so they end up having, like, you can have like 8 copies of the thing in your deck if you wanted to, but I think they only ran the one Renegade Rallier. I think they preferred the Extraction Specialist because it's a 3/2 with lifelink.
Yeah, exactly.
So Renegade Rallier and what's that other card called?
Extraction Specialist.
That's like a 2-card combo with 3-card combo with Goblin Bombardment, because you sacrifice the Specialist, then the Renegade Rallier enters the battlefield, comes back, triggers, the Specialist comes back. Is that right?
No.
Renegade's only 2 drops. It has to be with Safi.
Yeah. So,
right,
you
so you
need
need
Safi,
Safi.
Safi, and then either a copy of Extraction Specialist or Renegade Rallier, and then any sack outlet that you can just repeatedly do.
Exactly.
Goblin Bombardment's the best one because it actually wins the game.
Yeah.
But also, you're running Ajanis and Amtraptors and stuff like that anyway. So
Yeah.
you
So
can flip your Ajanis. You can also they're also an Ocelot Pride deck, of course, as well, because they're running Ajanis.
And it's very surprising as well, because you can have like Safi on the battlefield, and you have your birthing ritual. Safi goes and finds your Renegade Rallier, and let's say your Goblin Bombardment's just sitting there, and boom, you're dead out of nowhere.
Yep. Yeah, you just lose on the end step. Yep.
It's crazy.
Brilliant.
It's very, very cool.
So that's sort of the decks we were expecting. That's sort of like the sort of meta discussion we were going to have. Do you lads want to add anything else to the modern meta as it stands? Are you happy with the meta as it is?
Ban ring, and that's it, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
As someone that uses ring, ban ring, please ban ring.
Ban ring, and I do think the meta will settle, and I think some decks might even come to exist. You know what I mean? Some of the decks that are being oppressed by Boros, because we talked about this before. The decks that are good against Boros tend not to be good against the rest of the field. So you bring a deck that's good against Boros, but then lose to everything else. But then Boros beats pretty much everything else other than your deck. So this is it's like a weird, horrible triangle of unevenness, I guess.
Yeah, I'm a little curious about one thing actually. This is for Chris. How's the Goryo's matchup for Boros?
The Goryo's matchup is pray they don't have it. And just try to aggro them out. From my experience, luckily for me, the only time I've ever played against Goryo's has been at FNMs, and every single time the Goryo's player just didn't have it. So I just beat him every time, and I was just there like, this isn't how this matchup is meant to go. I know that I'm meant to lose this because you can just generate a huge flying life winker, and then just all my aggression dies, and then you've got a huge stone wall. But every time I'm just like, yeah, all right, just die, I guess. Like,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, Chris, and this is just a question that I've just thought of. Are you part of like a team or a Magic?
No. Not part of any team. I just play my FNMs and go to RCQs. And this is the first Axion event I've been to. Second time I've ever top 8'd an event. The first time was the week before Huddersfield, which I ended up winning.
How long have you been playing Magic for?
7 years.
Right.
Since Our Devastation came out, but I'm mainly a Commander player.
God, that was 7 years ago. Gee, stop saying words, man. Oh my God, that's crazy. Oh no, I'm old.
Yeah, them Hazarets flying in with your Ancrop crashes 7 years ago, bud.
Mate, Hazard was my card, man. My first modern deck, like real modern deck, was a Hollow Phoenix, and it had Hazard at the sideboard. You know, it was my own build of Hollow Phoenix mono red, and I top 10 GP Liverpool, right? God, that's crazy. 7 years ago, no.
Yeah. Oh God, I never played competitive Magic when GPs were a thing, so I do kind of I'm glad that Axion does these big events, and I'm so glad that a GP style thing is coming back. I'm planning to go to Utrecht next year.
Nice.
That sounds so much fun.
Yeah.
But it will also be a lot of traveling and a lot of events, because I've got the Axion event in November. January I've got Prague, RCQ, and then I've got Utrecht in March. So my wallet is going to be drained.
Tell me about it, dude. I have Leo and Prague coming up.
Oh, mate, don't worry about that. You can't take it with you. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Can't take it with you. So I'm satisfied there, boys. What we will talk about now is we'll do a quick tournament breakdown, and when I mean quick tournament breakdown, I mean what rounds, what decks we face throughout the tournament. I'll go first because mine's not as impressive as yours, and then just out of interest, really. So
sure.
So for me, round one, it was actually my first feature match on screen. I know Templar MTG did a stream for it on, so I sat down table one. I was like, oh my God, I'm on camera. I've never actually been on camera before playing Magic. I was against Rory. I couldn't think of a better person to be on camera with, because me and him got really touchy-feely together, because it was nice.
And as we know, you're very difficult on camera.
And then, I was against Storm round one. Rory, fortunately or unfortunately, I won. Then I moved on to a green. I never saw blue in Eldrazi before. I never came across a green-blue Eldrazi deck. I was wondering what the blue was for, and I was told afterwards it was for consigned to memory in the sideboard for the mirror, which seems pretty cool. So I beat my opponent 2-1. Then he got me game one. Like my game one hand was like spell snares and fatal pushes. Like I may as well have had a mulligan to 3. You know what I mean? Like our hand was just dead against them. I will say though, game 3, Tishana's Tidebinder.
Ooh.
He under a Harbinger, so Harbinger sees he only had blue mana out. He managed to get to the point where he could hard cast an Emrakul, to which point I just Tishana's Tidebinded the trigger to take my turn. He was dead anyway. He was on 2 life, and I had like I put creatures out, but he was dead anyway. But Tishana's Tidebinder, beautiful.
Oh,
No one was expecting that card. And then round 3, I lost to the Mirror. I'm not going to talk about that match. I had a really frustrating match. There was a bit of drama to that match. I lost it. I'm not going to talk anymore about that. We spoke about it before already, Luis. But yeah, I had a really awkward match with against the Mirror. A few awkward judge calls, etc. Round 4, Eldrazi again, but this time was the Through the Breach version. My opponent, unfortunately, was lovely. They misplayed, which cost them game 1, and then game 2, I forced negationed their what do you call it? Not the amulet, the thing that taps mana. Talisman. I always get amulet and talisman confused. I forced negation of talisman, which unfortunately locked them out of the game. I slammed the Harbinger. That was them done.
Nice.
My round 5 opponent. This was my first proper punt of the day. It was against Titan. I was sensing. It was game 3. I was sensing in my head dismember. Someone was telling me dismember. They cast a spell that I didn't need to force negation, but I did it anyway, and then it dismembered my frog, and I lost. I don't know what it was. I just didn't listen to my little monkey brain, and yeah.
There's something a little bit poetic about dismembering a frog, kind of like science class all over again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then my round 6 was a weird Gorios version. That can I just say my round, which Ollie, if you listen to this chat, it was a pleasure to meet you. And for some reason, I just clicked on with you very well. You were a lovely man. It was a pleasure playing against you. But Gorios, it was like a weird sort of food. Create like a sort of what's the card? I'm so bad with card names.
Asmerano.
Yeah, but the thing that I get, food token.
Underworld Cookbook.
Yeah, Underworld Cookbook, Breach sort of thing. So so not Breach, sorry, Gorios Vengeance. So taps.
Yeah, it was blue-black Gorios. Blue-black Gorios.
Yeah, blue-black Gorios. Yeah, really cool deck, but I managed to beat him. Then round 7 at Boros, really frustrating because I think I punted somewhere this one as well because they kept a 1-land hand. I didn't have enough pressure early on, and then they eventually untapped, and their hand was just gas every time they drew a land. It was just gas. And then game 2, I lost because of a Flage. I mean, me and Luis said we shouldn't be bringing surgicals in that matchup, but I don't know. I think Flage needs to be answered, but we'll talk about it. And then round 8 was against Yorg, a lovely guy from Northern Ireland, from Southern Ireland. Beautiful, creamy.
The exact opposite, yeah.
Beautiful, creamy Southern Irish accent. He was on Yorg. He got the Tishana. He got the Cauldron thing with Grist. I couldn't beat him game 2, but game 3 I got him. But yeah, that was my tournament breakdown. 5-3 in the end. Half a booster box. Probably not as impressive as your prize support. But yeah, Chris, how did your tournament go? It went really well. Yeah. What did you face?
So round 1, I was against Frog. I expected a lot of Frog, and I played against that a lot, so I was quite comfortable with the matchup.
Yeah.
The problem is that I was incredibly tired by round 1 because I hadn't just fully woke up, and I had issues the night before trying to upload my deck list to melee.gg because it wasn't working. So I only got to bed at 2 a.m, and I had to be out of the house at 7. So I ended up missing 3 static prison triggers in the same match. Got judge called 3 times, got a game loss in game 2 because of it, and got a warning that if I miss any detrimental triggers for the rest of the tournament, I would be a game loss. So that was a good way to start round 1. But I did end up winning. I think game 1, it was a lot of back and forth, and I ended up just pushing over the line with a bunch of damage. Game 2, he controlled me throughout and just ended up beating me to death with an Orcish Bowmasters left over. We just kept going card for card, and the 2/2s ended up getting over the line. And well, they would have, but then I was on 3 life and got judge called for missing the prison trigger again and got the game loss. And then game 3, I'm pretty sure I Blood Moon locked him. Like he just didn't have any mana. He just couldn't cast a single spell, so I just beat him to death with creatures. Round 2, I was against Jeskai Control. The best I've ever done against Jeskai Control, which is like 2-0-0. I didn't lose a game. I aggressively just like punched my opponent down to 6 life. I even had like a Flage on board. I had a 1 ring. Like everything was going great. And then game 2, I ended up going really, really wide with a bunch of cats and a Gianni and a Goblin Bombardment, and just like finished him off by sacking my entire board and killing him. He did joke about at the end by evoking a subtlety and then trying to evoke a solitude to exile the subtlety to live on that turn, but he's like, don't have the other white card. So that was pretty fun. Round 3, I was against Merfolk. I did not expect Merfolk at all.
No.
But I do know that Merfolk run Harbinger, the Flood Moon.
Yeah,
So I had to aggressively fetch for basics in all 3 games because obviously if I'm stuck on blue mana, I just die. I can't do anything about it. Ended up smashing him game 1, even though he had a Vial. I'm pretty sure I had to play. And this matchup feels actually like really play draw dependent. Game 2, he was on the play, and he just overwhelmed me. Like as soon as his creatures got to be bigger than 3/3s, I just lost the game entirely because my Mirror Removal spells just like get blanked. And then obviously Lord of Atlantis just swinging in for lethal. Game 3, he stumbled. He was a bit slow on the draw. No idea why he kept the hand that he did. I ended up just beating him with like on curve creatures, and then he just died. Round 4, I was against Is It Wizards, which I was talking with the guy after, and he said that he had played. I was his 3rd Boros opponent of the day, and he beat the other 2, so he was really confident seeing Boros. But the thing is about Boros is that if you can have all the answers, but if they don't line up correctly, Boros will just eke out a victory because they will just like punch through. So whilst like you can have your Flame of Anors, which are fantastic, but you didn't see any of them in the 2 games that we had. You can have your Spell Snares, but your Spell Snares can just die when they just go guide, Ocelot Pride, and then you just lose. And that's pretty much what happened to him. I think if he had mulliganed more, he probably would have had like closer games, but they were rather like open end, like they were just rather free, just because Ajani the busted card. Round 5, super interesting, was against Heliod combo. I've not seen Heliod combo in years. I don't know. I think he had it registered under a different
Luis
deck.
loves that card.
Just that deck started on that deck.
So game 1, I believe I won game 1. And then game 2, he found the combo. Oh no, it might have been like he found the combo. I won the next game, and then the next game he found the combo. But the 3rd game, he like held off against the Tide with is it Oriok something like when
Oriok Champion.
Oriok Champion, yeah.
This one was on the stream, wasn't it?
I have no idea. I didn't watch the stream, but it might have been. The Oriok Champion just gaining a bunch of life whenever my Ocelot Pride was getting in there. Ended up stabilizing enough that he could back to back Coco for the he cast Coco 3 times. So over 3 turns he got to look at 21 cards to try and find the combo. Yeah, I died. I think I could have played that match better. He's also running like the Root Wall, from MH3 that makes infinite Eldrazi tokens. I can't run it.
Where's the Reign of Gore guy for this?
Yeah, Reign of Gore would be fantastic against that deck. But I mean, he's running Haywire Mites in the main, I'm pretty sure, as well. But the thing about that matchup was I didn't really know too much what was going on, so whenever I saw the Root Wall, I kept bolting it so I could push through for damage. But I think because the way that the matchup ends up being is that you need to have 2 instant speed interaction pieces if they hit the combo, especially off of Coco. Because if they get it off of Coco, if you don't have the 2 red mana for like a bolt and a discharge, you are just dead. There's no way for you to beat it because the way that it goes is you need to bolt them, they put the trigger on the stack to gain life with Spike Feeder, and then you bolt it again, and then the Spike Feeder ends up dying.
Yeah, to an extent. Don't forget though that they also play Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So if they put that on their pro red, pro black creature, you're just
dead. There's like a million ways I just die. But like spending my interaction pieces early on like a one half of a combo piece that they might not have even had was probably like a really big like error from me, and that's probably why I ended up losing. Round 6, I went against Frog again. I think he got me game 1, and then game 2, I believe I one-ringed him to death, which was fun. And then
that's how I do it.
I think it was game 3, I kept a really slow hand. It had no 1 or 2 drop, but it had Blood Moon One Ring in it.
Nice.
So on turn 3, I just Blood Mooned him. After he played I think he played a Frog, and he had a 3rd mana open, so I imagine he had like a Spell Snare or something. Played at the Blood Moon, it got Force Negationed, and I was like, okay. And then next turn, I think I like started, like, I can't remember what happened, but next turn I just slammed a ring, and he had no mana up. I was just like, all right, good talk. And then I ended up drawing into another Blood Moon. He just couldn't play.
Yeah.
Round 7, I was against the Teamer Eldrazi deck. It might have even just been blue-green, I'm unsure. The ramp deck. And this is one of the ones that I thought was Through the Breach. Really cool player, really great. He was sponsored by Ultra Pro and gave me a pack of sleeves for free after beating him, so that was pretty fun.
Oh, brilliant!
And he ended up coming 9th. He like just got in on the invites because Archdota had already been invited, so he should be going to the Axion Invitational as well. Super close match.
That's the Emrakul, the Promised End tribal.
Tribal, yeah. Super close. So, like, really aggressive start, and just like ended up beating him down. He got a game off me through just like controlling me out properly and just like Emrakul in me or whatever. Actually, it wasn't Emrakul. He resolved like 3. What's the big 7 mana green Eldrazi with
Devourer
reach?
Worldbreaker.
Worldbreaker. Yeah. He resolved like 3 Worldbreakers against me. I was like, well, those 5/7s with reach, so I died.
Yeah, it's exactly 3 in that deck as well.
Yeah. And then the 3rd game, I had probably the most aggressive open that I've ever had with the deck. It was just a bunch of Ajanis, Ocelot Prides, and Goblin Bombardment. And he just died. He just couldn't beat it. He even resolved like a Worldbreaker against me and stuff like that, and it didn't matter. I just ended up sacrificing my cards and flipping a Ajani and just bolting him in the face. Well, not bolting. It's not really a bolt when it does like 7 damage, is it?
Yeah.
And then round 8.
Bolt.
Yeah, Super Bolt, yeah. And then round 8, I played against Archdota. I saw it was Jeskai, had no idea like what exact list he was on. I ended up really liking the deck, even though it absolutely trounced me because he's playing like Solitude and stuff. So like, normally for the Jeskai matchups, you board out like your Galvanic Discharges and stuff like that. But I think against Archer's list, you meant to keep them in just so you can eat the Solitudes.
Yeah.
I ended up bringing in.
I
ended up bringing in the Sunquenzas because I was like, there's a very high chance that he's running Wrath of the Skies. Isn't running it.
No, isn't running it.
Temporary lockdowned me in game 2, and I was dead. He did. I kept a really risky hand game 2 where I had like Mountain Aether Hub as my mana, which is really bad. But I had to turn 1 Ragavan on the play. It's like there's a really good chance that I only needed to connect once for my hand to like actually start functioning. He shocked in a Hallowed Fountain and consigned to memory the Ragavan trigger, so I didn't get a treasure.
And it ended
and it ended up costing me the game. It was a strong play by Arch. Really, really good read. Because my mana base was absolutely terrible, like the Jeskai one normally is. And then the quarterfinals, I played against another Teamer Eldrazi ramp deck. I was on the draw, and for some reason, the only game I won was when I was on the draw, which is just against what you would expect.
Yeah.
But I just had a really aggressive open. In game 2, he just ended up trouncing me with he stonewalled me with Summon Micro Spawns. No. Just 3/3s, just 3/3s, just get the job.
Fair one.
Yeah, and then he started exiling my lands, and I was like, yeah, all right, cool. And then game 3, I kept a extremely risky, once again, 1 land hand with Ragavan. But unlike your opponent, who ended up finding the lands and just absolutely blasting away, I did not. I kept drawing like Flage in the One Ring. But if I found a single land, I'm pretty sure I was almost guaranteed to win that game because my hand was just that full of gas. So I took like a 50% ish. Well, it's probably more like 40% chance ish to win the game just on the spot from a land draw. But even like, I even took the chance of like, well, even if I don't find a land, if Ragavan ends up connecting because he hasn't found a Kozilek's Command to remove it, there's a really good chance that I end up just winning. And he did have the Kozilek's Command for turn 2. Like he had the Soul Land Kozilek's Command. And Brilliant. I just was like, yeah, I'm dead. And then, Grim. But whilst it is grim, but I already had the Prague invite, so he does now get to go to Prague, which is pretty cool. And I got on really well with him, so that'd be fun. Be fun to see him though.
Fair, that's cool here.
You know what? I met so many cool people. So many people on the weekend, and I was surprised the amount of people who said like, "Oh, your podcast this." I was like, oh, "This is actually working. Like, what we're doing is actually like people listen to it. Like, it's cool. Like, yeah." One thing I want to like, I'm pretty satisfied. We're almost completed. We've achieved what we want to do with this podcast. We were going to talk into like debrief points and stuff, like our post tournament things. But I'm pretty satisfied. We've sort of talked about our thoughts after matchups, etc., and sideboarding like considerations. Throughout the pod. But there's one thing that came up on this weekend that I've never actually thought about, right? And I found this quite interesting, so I'm going to share. Do you know you have this bad beat story? Everyone has this bad beat story.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think of something that I did Axion last year that I really messed up on a timing, and I'm like, you literally win in the game and you mess up on a timing or something stupid. Bad beat story. Have you ever considered that you're the cause of someone's bad beat story?
Oh, absolutely. Without the round 6 opponent, well, round 5. Round 6 opponent. I definitely was his bad beat story by just like Blood Moon ringing him. He looked so frustrated. I just like, yeah, man, sorry. Like it is what it is.
Because I personally have never thought about that until afterwards we went to the pub, and I'm not going to name the guy's name. A really really good guy, really good at Magic. But I played against him in Axion with Rhinos last year, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he was playing some sort of blue-black mid-range pile. And it was when Flame of Anor was very new to Rhinos. Like Flame of Anor just got printed. It was very new to Rhinos, very new tech, and I was all over it. Like I was like, yes, I want to be doing this card. He cast Shieldred. I untapped before Drew. Flame of Anor it.
Oh my!
My Rhinos went off. Made 4 Rhinos. He untapped. Played 1 ring. I then untapped and slammed Questing Beast. I'd attacked for pretty much lethal.
Oh my god!
And
go on.
I almost forgot about that. Like I remember it, but I almost you don't think about it. And he comes to me, he tells me, "Do you want to know my bad beat story? Because you're it." And I was like, "Oh, okay," because I never thought about this. And bless him for telling me. Like obviously, I'm not. It's not an ego thing or anything like that. It's a really good, I think, just experiment to people's point of views, etc. And he said this, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, I never once thought about like I'd be someone's bad beat story, and I was like, I feel sorry now. I'm so sorry.
It's funny you say this, Josh, because I don't really think about it too much, but I know I am one Spanish guy's bad beat story, and this is like it's going to be up there in terms of bad beat stories. Let me tell you about this one.
Go on.
This is back in GP Liverpool. I was bright, bushy-eyed, new to Modern, no idea what's going on. I'm playing my Hollow Phoenix deck, and he's on Spirits. I have no idea what Spirits does. I've never seen the deck before. I'm just having a good time. And in one turn, I went from facing double Drogskull Captain and like 1 other Spirit.
Yeah.
I cast a bunch of spells, and I brought back 4 Phoenixes and a hasted Hollow one because of maximized velocity. He had to block all my Phoenixes with his Spirits and lost his entire board. And I was left with the Hollow one and a Phoenix or 2. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he thought he had the game locked. Double Drogskull Captain. How do you beat that? That's so hard. And he got obliterated.
Oh.
And I'm 100% his bad beat story.
That's it. Yeah, I honestly never thought about that until this point. But you know, it's interesting. I just thought it was interesting. Oh, Luis, before we finished the pod, there was my Boros opponent was a Spanish guy, and he asked if we could speak more Spanish in this pod. So I don't know if you could say like a thank you for listening, thanks for your support in Spanish. That would be great.
Okay, of course, sure. Gracias a todos por escucharnos hoy en esta plática. Nos gusta mucho cuando nos vienen a escuchar. Muchas gracias por todo lo que nos dan, por tener tanta animación y tanto ánimo en total por escucharnos en este podcast. Es muy divertido y lo queremos hacer por tanto tiempo que podemos. But thanks everyone. Please subscribe and tell your friends, come join us for more podcasts. It's very, very fun, and I hope you enjoyed a little bit of Spanish there.
And Chris, before we go, is there anything you want to add to this before we finish? Anything you want to add to the podcast? Any social media, Twitter, shout outs, anything you want to add?
It's up to Battle Shards. That's it. That's all I got. I don't really use social media or anything, so that's it. I've just got you. I'll just shout at you guys.
So, you've kindly provided us with a deck list and a sideboard guide, so we'll go attach that to the notes. People can have a look at that, how you process thinking. So Chris, thank you for coming on last minute. It's been a pleasure to have you.
It's been fun. It's been really fun.
Really interesting to talk to you, and I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, cheers, Luis, and
yeah.
Cheers.
Like, comment, and subscribe, o dale gusta, comenta y suscribe.
Muchos gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Adiós, hasta luego. Take care, guys.
Hasta luego.
See ya.